Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Garrett Walsh, and I'd like to thank you very much for taking your time as we have the opportunity today to kind of introduce myself, introduce William, and understand how we at Mprise Agriware can best tackle horticulture business challenges with our solution, Agriware 365. A little bit about myself, and as we kind of go through the nuances of this webinar, I want to kind of encourage the chat to be entirely open. Our intention is to have this webinar be fully reviewable after the fact, and we want to keep a very organic kind of conversation between any chat participants and us. So please feel free to exercise those chat rights. And if I can't address or William can address it, we have some Emprise colleagues within our staff that will be able to address any and all questions. So without further ado, William, if you're ready, let's kind of start and kick this thing off.
Yes, sure, let's go.
A little bit about myself, just as a prior introduction. My name is Garrett Walsh, and I'm a business consultant here at Mprise Agriware. I am currently based out of Brooklyn, New York, and a little bit about me, I'm a third-generation horticulturalist who has a passion for operations within horticulture. My specific journey within this industry includes over 10 years of operational experience managing large-scale commercial nurseries and research and development operations, mostly specializing in woody ornamentals, tropical foliage, and leafy greens. I pride myself on my passion for this industry, so hopefully that is conveyed during this webinar. And that's a little bit about me, but I'll give it to William right now to introduce who he is.
Thank you, Garrett, and nice to meet you all. I am William van Loenen, Chief Product Officer at Mprise, and with the company since 2008, so over 15 years of experience in the industry, and responsible for product management and product development. And in that sense, I'm really passionate about bridging the gap between technology and business value. So using technology, IT, to bring value to help growers further, that's what I wake up for in the morning. So, and hopefully, we will go through some of the elements today, and Garrett can take us through the agenda.
Absolutely. So as we go through the agenda today, go to this next slide. As we go through today's agenda, again, it is planned for a 60-minute webinar. By all means, I know everyone's time is valuable, and so our intention is to be very deliberate and very open about what we have for this initial webinar. And I'd also like to welcome everybody to the first webinar of hopefully many that kind of follow this. And so even if we don't cover all of today's topics today, we are fully intended on making this a series that fully encapsulates all of the values that we can, again, bring to your organization in Agriware 365. For our specific opening webinar, we're really just going to kind of focus on some main key characteristics that we have to tackle with our day-to-day operations within this business. A little bit about us is we are a global company that has a combination of consultants, developers, project managers, product owners, and many more other titles that comprise about 90 employees. The majority of them, of us, get to be are familiar with the industry, either from an operational setting or from the IT ERP world. And so at Mprise, we are very proud to be a melting pot of dedicated professionals that can service our clients in specific ways across all time zones. And so if you look at that map on the graphic, you'll notice we kind of have that ability to reach and service our clients at a global perspective. And so if there's anything from a support perspective that you need directly at a moment's notice, we can always be there. But to really tell about the true origins of Mprise, I'll give it to William, being that he is a much senior employee here at Mprise, to tell us really about the foundations of Mprise Agriware and how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, it was quite a journey, actually. We started back then as a spin-off of the companies Van Zaal and Vlier Systems, where they produce machines for the horticulture industry. And they saw the need of more ERP planning kind of systems for their customers. So that's where it started. And from 2014 on, Mprise bought Agriware and a few other companies in the horticulture industry. And from that moment on, we scaled worldwide. So we started in the Netherlands, but you see also in this picture we have set up a development team in India, but also consultancy is present over there, Mexico, US, Canada. So we strongly believe in local presence, right? So have local sales, local consultants to be near you. And yeah, so that's why we have this global ambition, and we're still going strong.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's exciting to work for an operation that again has its roots within the day-to-day operations of this business. We all kind of came from different backgrounds, but being able to relate to colleagues and how we can bring those experiences and relay that to our customers is really what I think kind of sets us apart. We are primarily horticulturalists first, and hopefully we develop and deliver a product that again services that industry.
Yes.
So now that you know a little bit about myself and William and about the company of Mprise as a whole, being that this is the first of our webinar series, I thought it would be very important to kind of convey our purpose, to convey our message as we understand our impact from a global perspective. The mission of Mprise Agriware, and that is being that our entire reason for existence is to create, manage, and maintain a tailored business solution for your horticulture business. We, again, are the partner who understands the day-to-day horticulture operations across the entire spectrum of the industry. And we want to make sure that Agriware as a whole is the platform that you can use as a tool to unify your business. An all-encompassing platform that handles sales to production to inventory management and ultimately to operational execution. Because again, what good is a software or a technology if it's not ultimately implemented and used daily on an operational basis? During most implementations with customers, we generally see this as a transition to modernize their operation. It's also a great and important time for companies to take a kind of a step back, understand their processes, understand to how they got to where they need to be today. So as we make the transition to using Agriware 365 as a tool to really support their business, we can really make sure that we're really hitting all the needs of those customers. And I'll kind of let William more or less talk to the expansive and the development of our platform as it kind of A has evolved over the years and B what we kind of have for the future. The most exciting thing probably about our platform is the robust foundation that it kind of sits on, being that it is all Microsoft based.
Yeah, that's really important for us. I mean, future-proof technology is sustainable software. We built standard software for the business with 100% focus on the horticulture, and everything we do should run forever and every day a bit better. So that's why we use latest technology, and we strongly rely on Microsoft technology, and it helps us a lot. Microsoft is taking care of infrastructure, security, a cloud solution, ecosystem with third-party apps. And it allows us to fully focus on what the horticulture industry really needs. So that's what we're good in, and that's what we add. And yeah, we make use of everything we can find in the Microsoft stack. And yeah, that's so broad. The whole portfolio and also integrations in between the different products they deliver is massive. So that constant innovation that kind of drives us to keep up and also translate that into business value for our customers. I mean, that's what we aim for.
That's so exciting. Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of you transitioning into the tech world myself. There's a lot of acronyms and a lot of buzzwords that are kind of coming on in play. And the exciting thing is kind of from a Microsoft perspective, and I'm kind of teasing this a little bit for our future webinars. What are some of those major kind of key buzzword features that Microsoft's looking to roll out that we'll be able to incorporate within Agriware?
AI, does it tell you something? Another
AI
buzzword?
tells me something.
No. Yeah, but what you see, Microsoft is strongly, highly investing in what they call Copilot. And Copilot is a kind of AI system, but then built in the application. So it makes it way easier to execute tasks. So productivity to make things easier in the system, repeating tasks you can delegate to Copilot, and it really helps you to achieve more with less effort. And it's not only in our product, because that's what we also kind of embrace and bring to our customers to kind of have smart proposals of production plan or create sales orders by just extracting the data from an email, for example. So that's
That's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, so now again, we've kind of allowed you to show who we are, where we come from, ultimately our purpose. Let's actually show what our platform more or less does. And so in this next slide, you'll actually see a phenomenal triangle. And as I've kind of have my time here, I've kind of understood that this is the triangle of opportunity here at Mprise. And while I'll let William really talk to the specifics of each leg of this triangle, one thing that's clearly focused is you'll notice within this triangle at the very center of it is is the farm, is the business, is the core. And that's really where we want to have and support our clients. That at the center of our entire platform is our customers' operational excellence as they do their day-to-day business. And so as we kind of go through each wing, you'll notice that all these individual components, they are tools that can be used more so heavy or less than they need to. And so that's what's kind of unique is since we're tailoring the solution, we get to use a combination of all three of these platforms to really make a custom approach to each customer, so that if it is reporting or if it is operations or ultimately all the ERP understanding within Agriware, the Agriware Business Central, we really have that ability to do that. So William, if you wouldn't mind, can you kind of walk us through all three legs of this pyramid?
Yes, let me explain a bit more, because there's a lot on this picture. And what I want to emphasize in the first place is that you see here three, well, call it components, three products, but in the end we provide one solution. And the main thing of this picture is that we cover all the aspects of your business. So it's the decision making, it's providing insights you need to make better decisions faster. And on the left bottom you see what the product Business Central, which is targeting the office, long-term planning until what you have exactly to do tomorrow. And on the right side, the work floor, so greenhouse, open field, warehouse, whatever it is, that requires a different approach, different types of users. So for all these elements, we have a separate approach, and in the end, it forms a holistic kind of solution to connect people with each other across departments, and ultimately collect a lot of data to make better decisions. What you see at the top, you might be familiar with it, is also the grow technology part, because it's not only Agriware in your greenhouse, you have also other types of systems, for example, grow technology, climate systems. And there's a lot of valuable data in those systems. So one example is that we kind of combine the data from the operation, because we know exactly what has been produced, how long it took, how much effort it took. And we can combine that with climate conditions to see, hey, is there a correlation between those, and what does that mean for my planning tomorrow, for example?
Fantastic. So that analytics arm really strictly is there for reporting. Is that kind of customizable in a sense, or how can that kind of be catered to specific roles?
Yeah, totally. So on the background, we have a generic data model, and on the front end, you can just build a report for every particular role. So we do have what we call the top 10 insights. So the typical insights like reporting on waste, germination, labor performance, costing, margins. So just the typical things every grower face. And that's just a template. So for every topic, you can kind of customize the reports, make your own reports, share it with your colleagues. So that's kind of a very flexible way of reporting.
Fantastic. So, and then ultimately, we're able to pull all that report out. But for any ERP to be truly successful, you have to input data, because again, every effort that you're going to put in is what you'll kind of expect out. How does Agriware 365 kind of do that kind of within the field? Again, as much as we would love to work in an air-conditioned office, very often is not the case. How does Agriware 365 kind of complement that so you can work that out in the field?
Yeah, that's a good point, because traditional ERP is not designed for being used on the field. It's not that simple. So what we try to do, and what we're doing actually with our operations platform, is target every role on the work floor, on the field. So that could be a machine operator, a forklift driver, or also a team lead. And for every particular role, we have what they need, and the insights they need to make decisions, the insights also in terms of what do I have to do today, and also the ability to register what they're doing. So that could be very simple with a play stop button, or also more extensive if you want to collect more data. And I think what's really powerful there is that it's fully kind of configurable for that role. So you only see what you need in your role and nothing more. And that really helps a lot to make this work, because pen and paper is still favored by a lot of people. So it needs to be very easy and simple users to kind of let employees embrace that.
Perfect. That's excellent. Yeah, hopefully this has kind of painted a clear picture, amongst the audience to understand the capability, again, of how we facilitate action on your day-to-day business. And like William said, our goal is to make it very role specific. But now, as we kind of gauge into our webinar today, it was really how do we tackle specific issues that the industry is kind of facing. And so, to better understand some of the problems that growers and operators face daily, we have to be aware of some of the greatest challenges that the industry faces right now. And while we all inadvertently have our own day-to-day struggles with certain topics, I think the clearly the most outlined topics that we've seen, and this is even from a survey from Greenhouse Grower Survey of this last year, these are the main pain points. These are the main pain points of the top 100 growers. And as expected, ever rising labor cost, the supply chain, and production costs are the top of the list. All three of these components are unique in their own right and can cause operations to kind of come to a halt if not understood, and more importantly, planned correctly. During the webinar today, we're going to really dive into these particular topics and give a brief insight on how our Agriware platform and Forgo mentioned ability with analytics and operations all kind of interact by understanding those problems that could face the industry. And so while we look at the topics today, we're going to really, again, look at them in a very unique role perspective. We find, again, being that I used to be on the other side of the table, this was a refreshing approach when I first joined Mprise, because it's easy to do things and say things, but when you really make it applicable to a person's daily role or their daily objectives of what they need to get accomplished so that the next item or thing can happen, again, the easiest way to do that is really bring it from that role perspective. It allows us to minimize customizations and really ensure that our approach and that our standard platform it can be used and be useful across several different rows across the industry. And so while we kind of go over that first topic, the glaring one at the top of the list is labor cost. And so for that specifically, we're really looking at the role of a labor planner. And for this, William, I'd love to hear all of what Agriware 365 can do for a labor planner.
Yeah, I think I was not really surprised that labor cost is on top of this list. We see it all over the place. It's still very labor intense. So managing your labor is key in getting in control and also reduce costs where possible. So when we talk about getting in control, I think that the first thing we provide, which is key, is an integrated planning. So starting from a production plan, where you kind of define what you are going to produce. Could be forward planned, could be backward planned, could be produced to order or produced to stock, whatever your business looks like. But the key element is that if you know what to produce, so the numbers, for example, here per week in this case, you also can know what you have to do exactly. So based on the production plan for each individual production batch, we calculate what you need in terms of activities. So, and it could be all kind of activities, right? So sowing, sticking, moving, spacing, but also doing inspections or crop treatments like fertilization or crop protection. And based on templates, which can vary per crop, per variety, per location, per country, you name it, and we can specify it on what level you want to be more specific in the templates. So then if you put it in this integrated way of planning, you can just kind of pull up all the labor you need for your production plan. And so, if you put it in the timeline and you look at all the production jobs you have planned, you can easily see how your production, your required labor evolves over time. So this is a longer time frame. You can imagine that you can also look it up for the next week, for example, to be more precise. Yeah, so what you see here is a comparison between what you have planned in terms of labor and what you have realized. So it's already a bit looking back. And the red line is what you did last year. So you see here in this peak, so you're expecting way more hours than you did last year. So you have to do something. You have to act. And yeah, so that's one way of looking at it.
This particular view that we're seeing, William, this is an example of that analytics arm. Again, this is a kind of a customized approach, and it's unique with this specific situation because you have that difference between realized and planned labor. How customizable, again, are these reports?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what indeed we shortly discussed. This is fully customizable. So these are just charts, planned labor by activity. But if you want to see it per customer or per whatever, you can easily change that. It's Power BI basically on the background, so it's very flexible. And yeah, so one example here, this is a view of labor per activity. So you see all the activities stacked here, so you know a bit more what this labor is about. If you would like to have more kind of metric view, so you can calculate with the numbers, it's also easy to just draw metrics and know per activity per week how many hours you need. You can zoom into the crop, the particular jobs, the customers. So that's just what you need to what you would like to see. You can put it there.
From a planning perspective, do we have the ability with that analyze arm of Agriware 365 to do like scenario planning? And if we do, typically is how far in advance can we do that? Are there opportunities that, because again, as much as we would like to have one final plan that rules them all, we would need to have that flexibility to kind of look at different scenarios. Can we do that within the analytics?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's typical when you start a new season, for example, you key in your thoughts. So what if I produce this? Then it's quite easy to make different scenarios. So what if I produce more of this crop, what of the other? And then similar to what you see here, you can compare those scenarios with each other and see what the effect is on the required labor. Not only labor, by the way, because also space utilization is a big constraint. So also the
Absolutely.
effect on that on the area, you could approach like this to see how it evolves. Have your greenhouse half full, and then you want to kind of simulate what can we put on top of it. That's also an example of forecasting. So you take what you already have in production and see where you can play around with the space, so where you can put some more.
Oh, fantastic.
One other thing I want to mention is capacity planning, because knowing how much labor you need is one, and it helps in kind of flattening the peak. You know how many labor you need to hire from seasonal workers, but also kind of playing around with the labor to spread it more over the week, for example, is one of the things we can do. So this is a view, for example, per week. You see the labor required, you see the capacity that could be named capacity or just on group level that you know how much capacity you have, depending on how far you want to go. And then we see here for every individual job, the production beds, what activity needs to be done and when, and you can move it a day earlier, day later. You can split it if you want to spread it over multiple days. So that way you can manage on the shorter term, so typically the next week. So spread the work a bit equally to make it more doable.
Yeah, so then your planner would really, you have that same relationship as you mentioned between space and ultimately labor that you can kind of, again, kind of play around with and do all of that planning ahead of time. So as much as it is on the fly, we can actually get a little bit ahead of the curve. So from a
Yeah.
planning perspective, we can be set. So then how does that kind of go back into the system almost as an actual when these jobs get completed?
Yeah, exactly. So knowing what you have to do is one, knowing what you did is even better, because then you can learn from the actuals. So one way of doing it is having an app on the work floor that the worker just presses the play and the start and stop button to track time. Of course, if you are working in a team, you can form a team and track time for the whole team. It's also possible to register what you did in terms of quantities, so how many plants you potted or you moved around. And then we can afterwards easily calculate what the actual performance is. So that's of course afterwards, but also during the day you can measure your progress. See, hey, are we on track for this day, or do we have to buy dinner for the team? And knowing the actuals helps you improving the labor standards. And if you improve the labor standards in your system, then you can plan way more accurate for future activities. So that's a kind of learning curve, which is not one-off. It's a constant curve of planning, monitoring, and improving. And that's where analytics really helps to show you where to where to calculate better labor standards for the future.
Perfect. In terms of the worker registration, when you're tracking the actuals, does that operations component have the ability to track specific lots? I know we've got several different types of customers that either do their own soil mix, their own consumption of cuttings, whether you're doing some mother stock, however you be. Are you allowed to really, when you're consuming that material, what does the lot tracking capability look like? And are we really able to tie that all the way back into BC?
Yeah. So we do touching a bit the supply chain, which we will discuss later. But it really relates to this part because if you want to register on the work floor what you did, then you also want to capture which product did I use, which batches. So it could be seed lot number or chemical lot number. So yeah, whatever you want to track, you can register on the work floor, but that's not a must, right? So you can start easy, just track time or just mark an activity as completed. So not even track time, but that you at least know, hey, it's done. So that's kind of scalable solution, and depending on what you need, what information you want to have afterwards, you can decide which of these elements you want to implement.
Excellent. I think we just did a brief overview of a very complex topic, and so we'll kind of transition to the next one. Our next topic again is kind of number 2 or number 3 on that prior list, and that refers back to the supply chain. Again, we are and now more recently, especially in the States here, probably in North America, just due to our geographic separation, sometimes that supply chain is extremely complex, and so it's very difficult to navigate in terms of understanding what material you have and when you have it, and making sure that doesn't really delay your operations. William, could you kind of walk us through the capabilities of that Agriware 365 has in regards to the supply chain?
Sure. Supply chain, well, it's a broad topic, right? So we'll touch some elements here. What's important to understand, starting from the same production plan, which I just mentioned, if you know what to produce, we also calculate with a system the complete timeline. So what you see here is per production phase, how much time it will take, so the lead time, but also calculated scrap or germination percentages. So the whole kind of project, the whole production cycle of one batch is completely known. So not only activities, also space utilization and the numbers. So this is the outline from kind of seed to finished plant or young plant, whatever you what your product you're producing. And per production phase, we know exactly what items you need. So at the beginning, you start stickings. You will need base materials. So an unrooted cutting, for example, or a young plant. But you also need soil. You can use pots, trays, all that kind of hard goods. And by managing these elements as part of the template, so per crop again, or per whatever, you can specify this template is applicable for this type of production. So you can order just in time what you need, so all the hard goods and all the plant materials. And it really helps in the purchasing, so that you know what you need and never forget to order.
In terms of reordering, William, do we have the ability to kind of set up particular policies or templates or timelines? I mean, typically, sometimes as much as you would like to just order 100 pots, they only come in quantities of 1,000 or by specific lots. Do we have that ability within Agriware?
Exactly, yeah, sure. So depending on the type of product, you have different kind of reordering policies. So if it comes to pots, maybe you have a minimum stock level. So when the stock level is expected to become under a certain level, then a purchase proposal will pop up saying, hey, you have to buy pots. And if that goes per pallet, it will propose to buy a complete pallet because that's what you have set up. That's one. Other option is, of course, also to purchase specifically for a customer. So seed, for example, could be ordered for sales orders directly. So then it's way more precise. So it depends on the type of product, and actually, since also here we are relying on Microsoft's ERP, so everything you will need in terms of inventory and purchasing is just there. So all the scenarios out there are supported, and that's really beneficial for us. So it's just kind of connected to the things which are typical for horticulture, and for the rest we use the out-of-the-box tools Microsoft provides. Yeah. Yeah, so related to supply chain is also the item tracking. So if we know that complete cycle, we can also kind of track back if we register what we're doing. So starting at the beginning, so from the moment you receive your stuff, that could be seed, for example, with a certain lot number from your vendor. Then we know what the receipt date, the lot number, and when you start to take a job in production, you can register which lot you have consumed. So for later on, that's tracked. During the
So
production,
a perfect case scenario for this, for example, was if we're using the Inspect app as a grower, and you're able to put that inspection and also create a treatment. All of that information again put on the apps automatically feeds back into Business Central just because you set up lot tracking. That's incredible.
yes, exactly. Yeah, and and with the other apps, for example, if you register your movements in the greenhouse, you know exactly where this job has been. So what position exactly. You can apply treatments, indeed inspections, who worked on the job. Same applies to when you take it into inventory until shipment. So if your customer has a complaint, you can completely track back, hey, which job have I shipped, what happened to the job, and even who supplied my base materials for that shipment. So that's really cool. And also here again, you can start simple and you can scale up and be fully traceable. That depends on your needs, of course. Last but not least, I mean, if you think of supply chain, you also think about livestock and availability, because you want to know what your stock level is and also what you can expect to become available over time. So based on all this, we constantly calculate what you can expect in terms of sellable plants per week or per period, just how you want to see it. And if you kind of stick a bit more or less in the beginning of a job, that has direct influence, of course, of the availability later on. So with every change in the plan, we calculate forward what the effect will be on the outcome in terms of expected output, sellable plants. So in this availability view, yeah, you can see exactly what is still available for sales and where you run short, so you have to replenish. That's also one of the things you can see here.
Is this item availability only specific to inventory, or can you kind of make it particular to specific roles? Say if you're sales and you're looking at that relationship between supply and demand, do we have the capability to kind of do that within this view?
Yes, sure. Because if you look at availability, you can have salespeople, they want to know what they can sell, but you can also have people from the production to see, hey, where do we run short? Do we have to replenish? So what we have is what we call item availability views. So you can configure a view just for the role you target and what do you want to see. So which supply and which demand do you want to take into account? You can also decide whether to calculate with shelf life. So if a plant can also be held for 1 week, 2 weeks. And for cuttings, for example, they have sometimes a short lifetime. So then you can decide to calculate with that shelf life. So all these kind of tweaks can be made to get exactly out what you need. And I've seen a lot of approaches how people want to see availability. And so we made everything possible with different types of calculations. You just pick the one you like, and probably we have the one which is similar how you do it right now.
Perfect. Well, excellent. I think the last topic we'll cover, just because I'm looking at time and kind of cognizant, is production costs. So now, again, we have this ability to understand our labor, which has cost, and our supply chain, which has cost. But ultimately, at the root of any ERP is the financial aspect. And so, William, I'd love for you to show us that capability and how all that more or less gets tied in together. Because again, at the end of the day, money is kind of the thing that drives us all forward. And so I'd like to see how Agriware 365 really handles those production costs and the capabilities of it.
Yeah, this is great because here is where it all comes together. So financial is the basic of ERP, but financial ERP in horticulture, it's not out of the box going that well. So here we kind of connected the dots of particular horticultural stuff and financials. Yeah, so what we do, and I think we touched most elements already. So we have item cost, we have labor cost, machine cost is also a type of these costs, but also indirect costs like area utilization or energy. That's everything what relates to the job should be calculated, and that's also what we're doing. So what you see here is, for example, based on the planning. So we have kind of the norms, so we know what it probably will cost in terms of labor materials for a particular production job. But also afterwards, if you track your labor and you register the consumed materials, we also know and can tell you the actual cost for this job. And this is really powerful because if it comes to kind of energy and heating, yeah, those are the typical elements which relates to the time and the space a job consumes, which are very specific for this industry. So looking at the direct costs, this is an example of the cost evaluation over time. So you have some cost in the beginning, so that's probably the seed or the cuttings. And over time, you have some additional cost in terms of labor and pots. And this is not showing which activity was involved, but again, you can imagine that you can also view it per activity. But this shows that cost kind of builds up over time. And also, if we evaluate the work in progress, which I'll touch later a bit, then with every activity we do, we kind of help build up the work in progress value. That's the direct cost. If you look at indirect costs, that's typically based on the surface area a job consumes times the time it will stay there. So could be called square feet week square feet, week square meter. But that's typically what's being used, what's used in this industry. And this is also an example of norms. So if we produce something in January, well, that could be winter in some regions, then it's more costly in terms of electricity and heating than it does in the summer. So depending on the moment in the year, you can kind of pre-calculate what it will cost based on that week square feet.
So from a planning perspective, we're really allowed to dictate our overhead costs from a period of time. And then, as we mentioned in the triangle prior, if we really have a lot of that environmental data also feeding back in as actual, then this would probably be a great report that we could run within our analytics perspective to show that actual and planned indirect cost.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have access to the data of your climate system, then it becomes fun because then you can also get the actual consumption of gas or electricity from the greenhouse and relate it to the production jobs you have. So what you see here, for example, is the time a job, and the space a job consumes. So in the first phase, it's just a bit because it's in trays, for example, and the more mature the plants get, the more it's spaced and put in pots. So yeah, and also the cost will evolve equally. So you see here the time, the space it uses, and this line is reflecting the cost for electricity in this case. And this is information from the climate system. So we know per section what the consumption was from our system, and we know which job was where at what moment. So if you put those two together, you know the actual cost, and that makes it kind of really solid post calculation of what the job really costs.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Of course, the financial reflection of all this is that during that production we integrate continuously with the general ledger. So if we consume items and labor, we will post it as a work in progress on the balance on your general ledger. And at the moment the job is finished, you will create final inventory, and then that inventory is valued depending on what you like. That could be a fixed cost price, could be FIFO, LIFO, average. The typical kind of costing methods Business Central provides, you can use. And with that, you can also calculate your margins, right? Because on your sales order, you know what you have shipped, you know sales, revenue, and cost. So yeah, that's where it all comes perfectly together.
Yeah, I could see that web calculation is coming into such an importance. Being originally from Florida, we had natural disasters often, so it's always good to know where the cost of your inventory as it was growing, the status of it. So that's a fantastic add-on.
Yeah, and it's automatically, right? So you don't have to do anything when you just let people register what they do. It's kind of reflects directly the stuff in your financial administration.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, William, for walking us through those three particular topics. I am kind of looking at the clock and being a little bit cognizant of time. And even though we showed some of the capabilities of the software within our system, I kind of want to transition to the other aspect of Mprise Agriware that makes us a little different. Um, we have a very systematic approach to how we accomplish our specific goals and expectations within a project. And again, this is our implementation journey. This is again what I think separates us out, being that we used to be a part of the industry. It's what I always would love to see and what always I would love to be a part of. It is since we've developed and worked our software over so many years, we've developed so many businesses. We really have a unique approach as we tailor, and again, an industry specific approach per customer that has specific deliverables within that timeline. Implementation is everything. Just because if you're really nice shiny car, if you don't know how to drive, it's not going to move out of the driveway. And so this project management approach that we have is very deliberate, and it can scale at size as well. We can use it with customers that have a small amount of users or large amount of users. So it really comes up to that balance between the expectations of implementation and ultimately your operational goals. And to be honest, this is what I would convey. This is what I would love to see as someone on the other side of the table. If we can understand your users and how they operate so that we can have a seamless transition that ultimately mitigates your current process into a process within Agriware, that's where my job as a consultant comes into play. We go on site, we meet with you hand in hand and kind of develop that process together. Our job is to utilize your process within our standard software. And when we kind of make that mitigation and make that possible, that's how we get successful implementations. The last thing we kind of do as well is we can kind of tailor this to specific seasonal goals. If you have specific restraints in terms of this is when my busy season is, this is the acceptability of my geographic limitation, all of those factors we're kind of very familiar with, and these projects and these journeys are very customizable. And again, taking into account how is the best way that we can be successful. And so, based on your experience in the projects you've kind of been involved in, what does that kind of look like? How does that project management kind of work with the key users?
Yeah, it's quite funny because I'm just thinking we have implementations of just one user and an implementation of hundreds of users and everything in between. And of course, yeah, they require a completely different approach. But basically, we always do the same. And so we have a standard implementation method, and it's always a custom project plan, right? So depending on what the business needs or where the pain is, we can just see, hey, where we focus first on. So maybe we focus on implementing a bit of production first, or maybe first we do sales to tackle that, or maybe first we do finance, or we take one crop, and then the full flash everything, and then we take other crops we take on later. Those are all things we will just discover in the preparations and analysis phase. So where can we make things smaller? And my experience is that the smaller you make the first step, and of course you shouldn't make it too small because then there's no value. But the smaller you take it, the more success you will have. Because if you start just working with the system, and then you will get more experience, then you know what you missed, you get better feeling what the next step could be to improve a bit more. And so yeah, I prefer not to have a big bang, so have a 2-year project and then go live. So just make it smaller, make sure you have success with the first go live, and then move on, because it's not something it's what you do once. I always say an implementation is just the beginning, right? So then you have a kind of baseline, and from that moment you start a kind of continuous improvement phase where we also want to act as a partner. So it's not in this picture. Yeah, maybe the last bullet, support and optimize. But in the whole life cycle of an ERP system, this is just the beginning, and it all starts from the moment you go live.
Yeah, that handoff's such a unique moment because again, as a consultant, I'm trained in the dashboard, trained in the understanding of Agriware, but it's ultimately handing the keys, handing the keys to that card, making sure that those key users are educated and are aware and know the nuances of how we set it up. Because again, we kind of did that as a partnership. What do we kind of offer within Agriware to kind of ensure that that education is kind of understood through all the key users that are going to be interacting with it?
Yeah, that's a good one because it's well, we bring technology, but in the end, the solution is much more. So this training part is key in success. So what we have, for example, is e-learning and also industry-specific e-learning. So if you grow young vegetable plants, then you have different trainings than if you grow cuttings. So to make that kind of as easy as possible for the customers to do it in themselves. And of course, we will help when needed, but it saves a lot of time and a lot of kind of consultancy costs, and it speeds up. So, but it's not only that kind of hard skill training, because I was talking about if it comes to e-learning, but also the soft skills. So what do we expect from a key user? So what is the impact of an implementation in your business? So because ERP is also kind of connecting people from different departments with one system. So how does it work in practice? And that's more the soft skill trainings we also provide to kind of have the whole package and help our customers to kind of embrace technology and translate that into business value.
That's fantastic. I know it's interesting. This entire topic we're incredibly passionate about, and I can promise you this will definitely probably be on an upcoming webinar series about A, the implementation, the B, also the educational abilities that we have at Mprise. But looking at the time and being kind of cognizant, and if there's already any questions, we'll kind of start doing a wrap up of again the first webinar. Um, Before I kind of do a recap of everything we've covered more or less today, I would like to again welcome everyone to the next webinar. And just because we finished this one doesn't mean we're done. We've got a whole series of these. And as we kind of forementioned earlier in the discussion, next particular topic will really cover all of those key fundamental factors of that Microsoft has and is going to be rolling out and that will be applicable for Agriware 365, such as cloud security and all of the AI components. William, would you like to kind of give a little teaser at all about what the next webinar will kind of hold?
Yeah, I think again we have buzzwords here, but the next webinar will be about kind of get rid of buzzwords and show what it means for a grower, for a horticulture company, and how they can benefit from cloud, how they can benefit from AI, and have kind of typical applications. So not in general AI, but what features can you expect? What helps you in your day-to-day business, and that could be on all levels of the organization, from people on the floor to strategic management, to get kind of proposals, insights from the system, which will really help you further.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds exciting. We actually just got a question in the chat. William, I'll kind of direct it to you. Max would love to look at how the registration of crop protection possibly works. How does that kind of interact with all three of the elements that we offer within Agriware 365?
Yeah, so let me explain without any screenshot because I have not the device. Yeah, so you can schedule crop protection activities. So it could be part of a template because you always do it on a certain moment when you produce, and it could be ad hoc. So, and that's typically something which ends up in our work app, and the work app, to other words, explains already a bit, is where you can kind of distribute the work to the people. And then every employer will have an app and see the activities they have to do. And in case of a crop protection, crop treatment, you can see, okay, I have to apply treatment to this job or this section. There could be multiple jobs, of course, in that section. And also the recipe there is shown because that's typically something you have with crop protection. So the recipe with the active stuff in it is in the ratios. It should be there. And in that way, you register that you have applied that treatment, but also what items you consumed. And if you make changes to that recipe, maybe you shouldn't. But if you can also register that, and that's what will be tracked,
And
what will be kept for later reporting.
That crop protection, again, like you said, it can either be kind of more or less forementioned within the planning of that recipe, or it can also be kind of done more or less ad hoc as it relates to location or space, and then it applies to the applicability of all those jobs. If I understand that correctly, William.
Yeah. So if it's more ad hoc, or not ad hoc, but not job driven, but more location driven, then indeed you can apply it on a position, and every job which is on that position will be linked to that crop protection, that treatment.
Fantastic. We've gotten two other questions in regards kind of a similar aspect of how operations kind of works and how that feeds back into the system. Could you kind of shed some light on that?
Sorry, again?
Could you shed some light on how information is actually kind of relayed from operations out in the field and how that kind of gets brought back into the Business Central like the Business Central platform?
Yes. So the idea is from the Business Central point of view, we do the planning, and the planning is up to day level. So what do I have to do today, tomorrow? And then we bring the data into Business Central, which is a live interface, so that there's a delay of max 1 minute. So it's kind of real time. And then from the operations perspective, you can spread that work, kind of divide over your teams and your workers, and that's where you plan the real floor stuff. And all the registration is done kind of distributed, because if people on a forklift, people behind the sewing machine, and that's kind of wrapped up together and fed back into Business Central at the moment you're done. That could be an option, or if you register movement, it could be real time.
Is that particularly an app? Is it interface specific? What does that kind of look like? Or do we allow to use multiple different platforms in terms of accessing the operations?
Yeah, I think you can see operations as a collection of apps. So, or an app. So we have actually one app which you can configure to the specific role. That's basically the ID. So it's one platform, one structure, and from the different roles you can just see only your bit, and that helps a lot in distributing it. So just see it as an app.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll take probably two more questions and then we'll probably do a little quick wrap up just because we're being a little bit cognizant of time. Max had another question in regards to that inspect operations as it regards to disease scouting. William, in your experience, what do we have the ability to do within that inspect app?
Yeah, this is typically what the inspect app is built for. So disease counting, so you could count fly, but also register that you've seen something strange on a leaf. So everything you can observe, you can inspect, and also here it could be a plant inspection, because every third day of a phase you want to inspect, but more often it's an ad hoc inspection. And also there it can relate to a particular job, but you can also do an inspection on a certain place in the greenhouse, or say, hey, I found a disease in this area, and then probably all these jobs are affected. And that's just the beginning, because inspecting is one, but follow-up is two, right? So also that follow-up scenario. So if I see something, I report it, and then someone else has to do something, apply treatment, have another inspection by someone who has more knowledge about diseases, whatever. That's kind of the workflow.
That's excellent. We've got two other questions. We're going to probably have our salesmen or our Mprise consultants answer this directly, but for the meantime, we'll kind of do a wrap up. Guys, I would like to thank you so much for taking the opportunity out of your day to sit and meet with us. Hopefully, this is the first of many webinars that you get to attend and get to view and get to look and learn more from William, learn more from me about the possibilities of Agriware 365. Last slide I want to show are the point of contact. Okay, so what do we do next? I would highly recommend that you reach out to either Martin or Firas with your specific questions. Again, we all at Mprise, it's a melting pot of people who share the same passion. We do love this industry in its entirety, and we have a passion for it. And so I can guarantee you that any conversation you would have with Martin or Firas or me or William, we will definitely light up the screen and answer any and all questions that you currently have. Last thing I would like to let you guys know, we will be at trade shows coming in January, both Mance and both IPM Eason. I'm excited. It's the first time I've been to a trade show in a couple of years, and so it's one of my favorite activities because again, you get to kind of get out, you get a state of the industry, and you really understand your role and expectation as a software provider. And so, again, I would like to thank you so much. Thank you, William, for taking us on that guided tour today. And I'll give it to you, William, to kind of wrap up. But that's all I have. And thank you, guys.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I think we touched everything, and we can talk days about these topics. So now we put it in a nutshell, 40 minutes. So it's just a brief overview. Looking at the questions, operations is something which we can dive into a bit more later on. But for the people who are interested, of course, reach out to us and we can show you all the details of that platform if you like. So great to have you here and hope to see you also in the next webinar.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much. All of us from Mprise Agriware. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.